AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Jeshua Bratman. Jeshua is the head of machine learning for Abnormal Security. Jeshua, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Jeshua, let's start with yourself. Quite an interesting background. You've worked for some really interesting firms prior to Abnormal. So can you talk us through your journey, where you first got started in technology, some of the roles you've held along the way, what you've learned and experienced, and take us up to just before you joined Abnormal Security?
So I had a pretty long history in machine learning. Starting out in research in academia, I did a lot of machine learning research in undergrad, and then I was in a PhD program doing reinforcement learning and deep learning work at University of Michigan. I finished about half of that program, and then ended up getting interested in startups in Silicon Valley, and ended up joining this predictive marketing company doing AI for ads and recommendations of products. And there was a lot of interesting work there. That company ended up getting acquired by Twitter, and that was an interesting journey into the Twitter world. I moved into the machine learning platform, Twitter Cortex, there, working on building platform for all the different areas of the Twitter product. In addition, working on a few particular interesting problems at Twitter, especially abuse detection, trying to identify hate speech and harassment on the Twitter platform, which is a pretty tough machine learning problem. About 3 years ago, myself and several other former colleagues from the previous startup founded this company called Abnormal, which is really focusing on stopping email attacks through data science and machine learning approaches.
Thank you so much for the background and the quick journey. I'm sure there's a lot we can go back and discuss, particularly from what you learned from the startup, then being acquired by one of the big tech giants, and what you took from all of that experience into Abnormal. Can you take us back to the origins of Abnormal? Yourself and Evan and Sanjay, and when you guys started to talk about, okay, we see a business and that entrepreneurial spirit, and what was the thought process before launching Abnormal?
Yeah, so this idea originally came. Evan and Sanjay, the two co-founders, were working at Greylock, sort of doing an EIR type role. And we had all been talking about brainstorming a lot of these different market areas, and this one came up in a few different ways. It was pretty interesting. It kind of coalesced in a few different dimensions. One of them in particular was our former head of engineering at Telepart, which was the predictive marketing company, had been the head of engineering for Proofpoint, which is one of the biggest email security companies. And so he had talked about this, how much of a problem it was, and how there really was not a modern data science AI-driven approach to this email security problem. And we had a few other related incidents right around the same time where there were a few news stories related to email security breaches. One of them, for example, was the 2016 election, in which the Democratic National Committee was hacked through email fraud. So there's a sort of a confluence of these things, and we started looking at the problem from an AI point of view, and realized that you could, if you really tried to tackle this from a behavioral analytics, understand the behavior of people talking to each other, understand the content of what is being discussed through modern natural language processing in similar ways to how I was working to approach abuse detection at Twitter. These things came together as a really possible market area that we could disrupt with really taking a modern approach using modern AI to tackle this problem.
Excellent. Really helpful to understand the thought process behind launching the business. So take us through abnormal security then. If you were to summarize the main use cases and give us some industry applications to what problem you guys are solving.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest problem is it's just a huge security problem for everybody right now, which is basically attacks that use social engineering and are delivered through email. This is the number one source of breaches for sort of any cybersecurity incident. Most cybersecurity incidents start with someone making a mistake, someone giving their password away, giving access in some way, being tricked into thinking they're talking to someone they're not talking to. And so this sort of wild world of email, even though it's an old world, it's constantly being utilized for bad purposes all the time. And over the last 5 years, the amount of attacks delivered via email has just gone up incredibly, and almost every organization is dealing with this, from paying fraudulent invoices to employees getting compromised to data getting leaked out to malware being installed. So what abnormal security's first main use case is stopping these advanced social engineering email attacks, things like what are called business email compromise, in which someone maybe trying to create this whole fake persona, maybe impersonating a vendor, trying to convince an organization to send money out that to a fraudulent bank account. Phishing, which is pretty familiar, which is basically convincing people to give up their credentials or to give up some other information through social engineering as well. And then, of course, the last is malware, where malware is being delivered somehow, either directly in an email or maybe much more sophisticated. You might have a fake DocuSign link that you think you're signing some document, but is actually installing malware, et cetera, et cetera. So the first and main use case of abnormal is just to stop all of these nefarious email attacks. We have a few other product lines too. For example, trying to identify when accounts have been taken over already, and a few other that we have similar detection based on behavior.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking us through the various use case applications, and given the growth of this space, it's quickly become a multi-billion-dollar industry in the protection side, but equally in the perpetrators, whether it's state-backed or rogue tech people. There's a lot of money being spent on these strategies, and it's no longer very crude emails. It's quite sophisticated. I want to talk a little bit about the journey from launching the business to some of the early challenges to where you are now. Could you give us some insight into what it's been like going from Twitter, one of the biggest tech companies globally, to launching and some of the challenges you faced along the way, and then also some of the proud moments taking us up to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started this company with the idea that we could do this better, but we had no idea if we could. We started from, no data, no, no companies that we were integrated with, no software, right? So building that all up from scratch has been, really fun. It was, just personally for me, I really enjoy the process of just figuring out how to do something hard and something new. So, in this process, we sort of started out with no data, eventually found some companies to partner with and to start getting data and examples, lots of examples of these types of attacks. Initially building heuristics to find, get more data to then start bootstrapping models, to start building a first-class sort of data platform, portal, integration with our clients' API through Office 365 or through G Suite, and building up this whole system that could real time start monitoring emails and real time applying machine learning models, making decisions, and remediating possible attacks. So it's been this, creating that all from scratch has been really rewarding. And the fact that we were really able to immediately, gain a lot of traction and very quickly build a product that was state of the art and able to detect things that no one else in this space has been able to detect. Is just extremely rewarding when we first integrated with a new client and on top of other existing email security, and they say, wow, you're catching things that we thought were impossible for an automated system to catch. So I mean, that was extremely rewarding. And from there, there's been a lot of it's been a lot of times where we started out thinking it was impossible to detect some kind of advanced invoice fraud in which someone has very carefully crafted a persona invoice to convince someone in the accounting department of this company that it is a real organization, and they're trying to ask for $1.5 million. And we thought, this type of thing is so hard to detect. How are you going to detect it if they're trying to trick people? How can we build a system to detect it? And the first time we actually started being able to stop these, it was so rewarding because, like, for example, we stopped one of these and our client came back to us and said, you just paid for your contract 10 times over by stopping this one attack.
You and I were speaking previously about some recent examples that you're particularly excited about and proud of. Can you give us some insight into some of the work you and your team are involved in right now or recently that will help sort of illustrate the impact that this level of security protection can have?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of challenges on the data science and ML side here. One is just the vast amount of data you're considering on one of these incoming email attacks. You have all the content of the email, the headers, the past communication patterns, who the people are, links, attachments, images. So you have this enormous amount of data. You're trying to predict this very rare event, which is whether this is an attack or not. And these may be 1 in a million messages are actually these advanced attacks. And then also at the same time, this is an adversarial problem. So the distribution of emails and attacks is changing all the time. So one of the things that we recently built was a system that very quickly retrains based on the newest available data. And we built this fast natural language processing detection system that churns over very frequently, gathering new information. And we were able to, there was one pretty cool instance where this was really effective. A couple weeks ago, there was this attack that was targeting Florida voters and Florida Democratic voters and purporting to be from this white supremacist organization, threatening them to vote in a certain way. And this is a type of sort of social engineering strategy that we've seen in other areas where people are trying to scare people into paying them money. In this case, they were trying to scare people into voting a certain way. And none of the existing email security stopped this attack. We were able to take the examples of this attack and plug it into our fast retraining model. And what it essentially did is it created a whole lot of examples using what's called data augmentation to create a lot of other possible similar social engineering approaches that weren't the same as this existing one. We built a model that was able to catch other similar types of attacks if they were to come again in the future. And we also use the same approach to target a pretty nefarious ransomware attack that has been going around recently, and shutting down hospitals and asking to ransom money. We were able to find examples of these and also put this into this data augmentation, fast retraining machine learning system to very quickly react to this changing environment.
Yeah, amazing. And it's the fact that these types of targets are looking at all aspects of life, not just from a financial perspective, but genuinely trying to influence human behavior is scary. But it's also evident that services like Abnormal are so vitally important.
Well, also I'll add on there is sometimes it appears that the attackers are financially motivated, and they actually are not. They're actually using that as a disguise for something maybe more nefarious. It might be a state actor, a spy organization that is posing as a financially motivated criminal to compromise credentials, to possibly get into an organization, and for the long game to have access to various organizations.
What are the biggest misconceptions in viewing the current risk and threats associated with cybersecurity from inside the tech community? Because inside tech, we're all aware it's a problem, but I'm sure there's things that we're not as aware of it with the evolution of these threats. If you were to give us a couple of things that we should be aware of that's changed and maybe is different to what the perception is, what would you say they are?
Well, the first one is just that when you think of cybersecurity, it's usually not hacking. Usually it's social engineering. Social engineering is really how most cybersecurity breaches happen. So I think that that's the first misconception. I think the other misconception is that it's like solved or easy problem from a machine learning point of view. I think a lot of people in sort of the AI machine learning space don't really think of email security as maybe an interesting problem space, but I found that it's one of the hardest machine learning problems I've worked on because if you think about this, the attackers are trying to trick human beings through social engineering. How do you build an AI system that is able to identify something that is aimed to trick people, right? It is really an AI problem. So I think that's another misconception. I think another one is just that that this problem is going away or solved, right? I think it's totally the opposite. It's just getting worse and worse and worse, especially as more people work from home in this COVID environment, more business is being done online. There's less and less, people are less on their guard for fraudulent emails and other fraudulent sort of social engineering attacks. So I think it's just something that we're going to be thinking about, for the next decade. It's not going away.
Yeah, I think it's important to hear that it's only going to continue to evolve and get more advanced, and it's so critical that we all stay vigilant. Looking then internally, it's been quite the journey for Abnormal Security since you guys launched. Lots of challenges along the way, I'm sure, but you guys are trending very much so in the right direction. When you look ahead for the next 12, 24 months, what's in store? What are you expecting, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah. So what I think is really unique and exciting about the Abnormal approach is that the way that we've solved this, or the way we are working to provide protection for this email security problem, is focusing on integrating with cloud APIs for a business. If you think about this, more and more businesses are moving into the cloud. They're running their businesses with various cloud infrastructures. Things like Microsoft, things like Slack and Microsoft Teams and Salesforce. Their entire business is moved online. And a lot of these services provide very good APIs. For example, Microsoft provides great APIs for both extracting data and processing it, but then also taking action within the environment. What I'm really excited about for Abnormal is that what we really are is a way to plug into this cloud environment, extract data, do really great data processing, combining this data, doing data science, doing machine learning, doing AI, making decisions on top of all of this data about an organization, and then using the API to go and take action within the organization's cloud. And that could be anything from security, like we're doing right now, from flagging and stopping bad incoming emails, to resetting passwords, which we also do, to things like identifying when data has been leaked out of an organization. But I think there's a lot more beyond just security and privacy that we can offer eventually as well. I think we could also offer productivity. I think we could join information across various parts of a cloud and connect information, perhaps surface informational pages to new employees, perhaps help suggest how to who to discuss some topic with in an organization. I think there's a whole lot we can do by just being a really great ML and data platform on top of all of the data that an organization works with in their cloud.
And as this threat evolves, the various projects and implementations that you guys will be creating to solve these threats will continue to evolve. So sounds like an exciting space to be in. I know there's exciting growth ahead for Abnormal in 2021. And, for data scientists, machine learning engineers who are interested in this space, it's certainly an organization to look out for. Jeshua, I really appreciate Thank you so much for coming on, talking to us about the business, the exciting growth, and we look forward to seeing you guys continue to grow and operate in this space.
Thank you so much. It's great talking to you.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following. AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.